Good morning, everyone. It is advanced objection handling, and I appreciate we're going to have people start popping in, and as I kind of go forward. Today, we are going to be going over, what is today? I'm going to be going over, I want to wait until, whatever. So we're going to talk about that. But as we start off each section, let me go ahead and do this. As we start off every morning, we start talking about the fundamentals of role-playing, of persuasive communication, of prospecting. Number one, of course, you can't make up in skill. You can make up in skill where you lack in numbers. You don't have to work so dang hard all the time if you're good, right? If you're good, you don't have to talk to so many people. When you're new and when you're not that good, you got to talk to more people. In fact, for those of you that were in my training yesterday out of my office, you'll commonly hear me say that you just have to accept the fact that when you start something new, you're going to suck. And you're going to suck until you get better. And the only way you're going to get better is through practice. And that is true with what we're doing here. And that's true with everything else in life. I'm just going to mute everyone. If anyone wants to talk, remember, hold down your space bar and turn it into a walkie-talkie. Fundamental number two, the person who asks the questions always controls the conversation. I am a broken record. And for those of you that talk to me on a daily basis, now you kind of know my fundamentals and my point of view on things. And I'm always asking questions. I'm always answering a question, but I'm always answering a question unless I'm in this mode, unless I'm in delivery, in distribution, in deployment, information deployment mode. Then I just start blah, right? But when you're in a sales conversation, you're asking questions. That's just what natural people do. That's what you do in a natural conversation. You can't change a person's perception or belief. Only they can. Again, you can only do that through asking questions. You telling anybody anything isn't going to do anything, right? The only way you're going to do it is ask questions and make sure that they process it. You don't have a lead until you know their why and when. Quite honestly, any type of objection that you get, any type of question you get, you should always go back to your 2-year-old self and ask why, right? Why is the sky blue? Well, it's blue because of this. Why? And then ultimately you get to the core answer. When in doubt, mirror their objection as a question. Now, this should be a fallback for you, but you should also be using this deliberately. Right? When you mirror something as an objection, when you mirror something back to them as a question, then 90% of the time they're going to give you a little bit more information. And like I said, I'm a broken record. You'll never get better at anything without practice. So if you want to get good at sales, if you want to get good at running, if you want to get good at polka dancing, then you got to practice. You can't just watch a video. You just can't deep dive into YouTube. Now, with that said, let's talk about today's objection. I want to wait until next year. I want to wait until after the elections. I want to wait until after this COVID thing is over. I want to wait when bleep freezes over. I want to wait until the sun rises in the west. I want to wait until blah, 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 right? So the structure of the rebuttal of this response is always going to be the same. Number one is, let's go with A. I want to wait until next year. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I totally get that you want to wait until next year, but if you don't mind me asking, why next year? What is it about next year that you want to wait for, right? Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I can totally understand that you want to wait until after the elections, but if you don't mind me asking, why after the elections? What is it about after the elections that's important to you? Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I realize that you want to wait until after the COVID thing is over, but if you don't mind me asking, well, actually, why? But number two, when do you think the COVID thing is going to be over, right? Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I realize that you want to wait until bleep freezes over. If you don't mind me asking, what's important, or why wait until that point? What's important about that specific point, right? So you've got to really dive down and find out their why. What most real estate professionals do, not just real estate, I'm not going to kind of corner us, what most salespeople do, right? I get cold called for vendors all the time. And I actually take the calls when I have time because I want to hear their pitch, because I'm just like everybody else. I'm just like you. When you get cold called on someone, you go to the reflex no. Nah, not interested. I want to see what they're going to say on the next level deep. Most people, they don't know how to handle that, which is interesting, because I promise you, when you call an expired listing, when I call an expired listing, it's the same objection. When you call it for sale by owner, when I call it for sale by owner, it's the same objection. You know, when I'm calling real estate agents, a lot of the role-playing group are out of state, so I'm not going to call you. But I promise you, if I did call you, the same objection, that the first objection that comes out of your mouth is 99% the same objections that comes out of everybody else's mouth, right? And the same thing is true with no matter who you call. So it would make sense to make sure that you practice that first level objection, which is usually a push-off, right? And the first one that could always be, if it's not interested, well, we've already done that one. But if it's, I want to wait until, thanks for calling, Brett, I want to wait until next year. Look, I totally get it. A lot of homeowners are saying that they want to wait until next year, but I'm curious, what's important? Why for you is it next year? What's important to you about next year? Why next year? You know, what's the big deal about the elections, right? So you're really kind of diving down, because they're just giving you a statement. What you want to do is find out, is this a condition or is this an actual legitimate objection? You know, most homeowners have zero idea what's going on in the real estate. If you're living in Southern California, the average homeowner typically sells, well, number one, most of them die in their property, right? Because of they don't want to sell it. We have a 32% reduction in Orange County as far as listings on the market. But, a lot of them aren't going to want to sell, but every homeowner sells about once every 14 years. I think nationally it's probably more like 8 to 10 years, but still, it's been a long time. 10 to 14 years ago, things were a lot different. Actually, they were a lot different. We were going through a great recession. But so you got to dive into it. And most salespeople, when you're like, hey, you know what? Thank you for calling. I'm not interested. Thanks for your time. And you're kind of pushing them off. And they're like, okay. They don't know what to say. Now, I don't know why, if you're going to make something a profession, why you're not really, 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 really good at the first objection that comes up 90% of the time. It makes no sense to me. So here's the thing. I want to wait until, let's just say, after the elections. I want to wait until after the elections. You know what, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I totally get it. A lot of homeowners are saying the same thing, but if you don't mind me asking, remember, that's a softener, right? I'm not being intrusive when I say, if you don't mind me asking. If you don't mind me asking, what's important about the elections that makes you want to wait? What do you think they're going to say? Most people, they're going to say, and trust me, I've surveyed this for me. If you guys are coming up with a different response to this than what I'm going to say, hold your space bar down, turn it into a walkie-talkie and share it with me. But most people are wanting to wait until next year, until after the elections, until after COVID things, is because things are uncertain, right? They don't think that now is the right time to be making a decision, right? That's why most people are waiting right now. Now, if it's a condition, they're going to share that with you, right? Well, I don't know. I'm moving to Alaska. We're planning a job move. I have a new job. I have to move to Alaska, so I don't have to be there until January. I don't have to be there until February, whatever, right? That's a condition, which means when A happens, B has to happen, right? That's a condition. But waiting till after the elections or next year, or after the elections, or after the COVID thing is over, or whatever the reason may be, it's typically because they're uncertain about the market. Now, I had in the training I gave yesterday, one of the objections came up that, there's a buyer that feels that the market's going to crash. And I said, well, it very well could crash. There's uncertainty in the market, right? So they were asking me, what would I say to a buyer? Now, number one, I'm brutally honest, but I don't give people my opinions. I give people what both sides of the aisle are looking at, right? Well, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, yeah, it very well could crash. And if you don't mind me asking, right, softener, are you looking to buy with cash, or are you looking to buy, or are you going to have to get a loan? right? Because when we're talking uncertainty, for those of us that have been in the business for a while, that we were in the Great Recession, one thing that disappeared were a lot of lending options. So yes, it could crash next year. There's a lot of crazy things going on fundamentally, but when you look at things, is your goal home ownership, or is your goal just buying, and do you need to get a loan, right? Now I'm getting off subject like I normally do, so I'm going to put that back on the shelf, and I'll come back to that to another time. Coming back on to the point of today is, there's uncertainty. So you need to let them know, say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I got to be honest with you. Or, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is it okay if I'm honest with you? Of course they're going to say yes, right? But now you're getting their permission to actually be a little bit more blunt, right? Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is it okay if may I have your permission to be honest with you? Yeah, I want you to be honest with me. I wouldn't have you over here if I didn't want you to be honest with me. Okay, that's fair. So look, there's a lot of uncertainty in the market. Yes, there is. They'll agree. Do you agree there's a lot of uncertainty in the market, right? You're shaking your head, yes. Yes, there is a lot of uncertainty in the market. There's this COVID thing that we don't know when it's going to go away. Like, I don't think in human history that the human race has ever defeated a virus, right? Now, we have vaccines, but you know what? I read a thing that the plague is like outbreaking somewhere. It's like, I'm like, the plague? Like Middle Ages, right? The human race hasn't beat a virus. But here's the thing. You want to wait until the COVID thing is over. When do you think that's going to be? But kind of going back onto it. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I totally get it. There's a lot of uncertainty in the market. And, is it okay, or can I have your permission to be a little bit more honest with you? Yes, Brett, I'd like you to be more honest with me. Okay. So the reason why things are so uncertain right now, if you're really looking to sell your home, assuming that we already know their why and their when, right? We have to have the motivation. Their why is that they have to sell the home. Their when is into next year. They want to wait until after the elections, which, guys, in my market, that's 31% of the home sellers are, because we're down 31%. So my guess is a lot of them, some of them are conditions, but a lot of them are waiting until next year, which blows my mind, and here's why. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, the fact that there is so much uncertainty in the next year is the exact reason why you should very much consider, I'm not telling them to sell, consider putting your home on the market right now. Well, Brett, why is that? Well, let me ask you this question. Most homeowners, right, I'm deflecting, I'm not putting it on them. Most homeowners' goals is to sell their home for the most money possible in the quickest time. Would that be your goal as well when you put the home on the market? Yes, Brett, that is our goal. No, Brett, that isn't our goal. Okay, now you're going back down the Y path, right? So we're going to assume here that they want to sell it for the most money in the quickest amount of time. Guys, do you remember that book, those books back? I remember reading these books when I was a kid, and you would read to a certain point, and it says, if you want to do this, go to page 10. If you want to do this, go to page 67, right? That is exactly why we practice, right? Because I just said that if they say this, if they say no, you got to go down the no path, you got to go down the Y path. But if they say this, then you got to go down this path, right? Same kind of concept. But when it comes to, uncertainty, it's like that's the exact reason why, most homeowners want to sell their home for the most money in the quickest amount of time. They're going to say yes. Okay, so Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, did you know that right now, your home, if you sold it, is worth more money in the history of forever? Now, I'm not talking last year. I'm not talking about the year before. I'm talking about surpassing the peaks of prior to the Great Recession. I'm talking like since your home has been built, since this city has been colonized, your home has never been worth more now than it ever been. Okay, do you agree with that? Yes, Brett, I'm watching this. I do agree with that. Cool. So we know that if you put the home on the market right now, that you'll sell it for top dollar in the quickest amount of time. Now, let's look on the other side. There's a lot of people, really, really smart people, that think that we're going to come into a market crash, right? And there's some really, really smart people that think that we're not, right? Now, I don't know what camp you're in, what your belief cycle is, but what that turns into is that, can you agree that one of those sides are going to be wrong? Well, yeah, I guess one of those sides are going to be wrong. You can't be half right on that, guys, right? One of them's going to be wrong. We're not going to have a V-shaped recovery. That was supposed to happen 3 months ago, right? This virus was supposed to be gone. We were supposed to have like a vaccine like now. So, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, here's why I say that you should really consider it. You said, now I'm reminding them, you said that you want to sell it for the quickest time for the most money. Most homeowners want that. And you're worried about, you want to try it till next year because we're uncertain. But yet we know that if we sell it now, we're selling it for the highest dollar since the colonization of California. Since before then, too. So would it make sense that taking a 100% probability that if you sold it now, we're probably going to get multiple offers. Even if you feel like you gave somebody a deal, you're going to get the highest sold price? Or do you want to take a gamble, a 50-50 gamble, that either the guys that say that things are going to be great is going to be right, and you're going to be able to sell it for about the same price that you're selling it now, because we're not seeing any drastic increases in sales price? Or do you want to take that 50-50 gamble that we could come into a market crash and we're going to see starting downward pressure? You know, which would be better for you? Well, we definitely don't want to take that risk. No, I don't think it would be a good idea to take that risk. So do you think that maybe we should start mapping out an idea on how we should get your home on the market right now so we can capitalize on the opportunities in front of us? Well, Brett, if we sold this home, we got to buy another one, right? Okay, guys, here's the thing. You solved one objection. You solved the problem. Now you got to solve another problem, right? That's what salespeople do. That's what professionals do. We get paid to solve problems. The bigger problem we solve, the more money we make. The smaller problems we solve, the less money we make. And as professionals, right, the difference that separates a professional from an amateur is we get paid. You know, the other thing that separates a professional from an amateur is professionals practice, right? When have you saw a professional athlete not practice? That's all they do in their off time. They have a game and then they practice. Then they have a game and then they cash these really big checks, right? So, time is it? So it's 8:48. So that's how we do it, guys. We gotta hit it head on. We've got to, you know, acknowledge what they're saying. I want to wait until next year. Hey, Mr. Seller, I know that you want to wait until next year, but if you don't mind me asking, why? Why next year? You know, if it's so uncertainty, why not until the next year after that? Why not until the year after that? If we're so uncertain, the future's always uncertain. The future's never been so uncertain than it is right now. But isn't that true at any present time, that the future's always uncertain? So if you're waiting because you're uncertain in the market, well, when isn't waiting by definition making it more uncertain? Isn't it making the best decision right now in the here and now, especially with home prices at historic highs? Isn't that probably a better time to make a big decision, is when you know what's going on, as opposed to waiting until the environment looks like, especially when there's a 50-50 chance that things could go sideways? That's my thought. Now, that's persuasive communication, right? Same thing goes after the elections. Why? Right? Yeah. You know, one of the two parties are going to win. You know, so what? In California, that doesn't really matter. All right. One of the parties is going to win. So if one of the parties is going to win, there's going to be uncertainty. We have one party that's in the office right now, and there's still uncertainty. So if they still keep the White House, it's still going to be uncertain. And then we get a new party in, there's uncertainty of what's going to happen. And okay, so that's always going to be around. Same thing with the COVID thing. Man, I don't know when the COVID thing's going to go. Like, I don't know. Like, I know that I'm not going to be the first one to take a vaccine. I think that the first person through, you know, there's a chance that their face is going to fall off. So you're going to look like that big guy on the Goonies, right? I forget his name, Thing, I think, or what it was. Okay, guys. So that's it for the training today. We're going to stop a little bit early so you guys can get onto the role play, and, you know, have an awesome day. Take care.